Hello foodie friends, it's a little gloomy in the kitchen today just because we've had a very large storm that blew in and it's still a little overcast. But the worst of it's over, so we're gonna go ahead and start filming. And I have kind of an odd recipe for you today. We're going to look into the new Delineator Recipes. And now, as far as I could tell, this particular cookbook has been reprinted throughout several years, but this particular copy was published in 1929. Now, looking at the recipes, they don't seem to be following any kind of Depression era cooking or paring down of ingredients or that kind of thing. So I'm pretty sure this was actually published before the crash. So we actually have some pretty high-end recipes in here with some lobsters and crabs and that kind of thing. But we're gonna go ahead and pick something called cheese croquettes. I've never made these. They seem like they would be good. It seems like it would just be kind of like a homemade mozzarella stick in a way. But we're going to try it because it is listed in here as an entree. And it's just interesting enough to where I think it would be really good. So we're gonna go ahead and try that. Then we're going to do a little bit of a twist on a classic in here. They have peas and carrots because I thought with all that cheese, some kind of vegetable is probably gonna be a good thing. But their recipe for peas and carrots calls for a little bit of sugar, fresh mint, and some oven time. So we're gonna go ahead and give it a whirl. I'm also going to make just like a really simple fresh salad to go with it, just to kind of round out the whole meal. So I think all three of those things together are gonna turn out to be really good. So let's go ahead and turn this camera around. And first, I'm gonna show you just a few of the little treasures in this cookbook that made it so special to me when I found it at the library book sale a couple years ago. And some of these articles are really, let's just say, interesting. So let's go ahead, we'll do that, and then we'll start cooking. Okay, and welcome to my kind of messy craft room. But since this is the quietest room in the house, I thought it would be better to film in here without the refrigerator and the HVAC system going on all the time. So here are some of the interesting news clippings and recipes that I found in this cookbook. This one is one of my favorite ones. Why grow old? Do your exercise to music. This is dated October 27th, 1949. And my favorite part of this whole thing is at the very end, where you can bend and twist and sway, turn and kick and dip with great benefit to your figure. I guess it's just odd to me that this is kind of, I guess, a new thing in the 1940s, as anyone who's gone through the 1980s with aerobics, it just seemed kind of a given that you would be doing exercise to music, but I guess in 1949 that was kind of a new concept. I also wanted to show you this picture here. This is one of the reasons why I love old cookbooks, because you see a lot of the things they used to do for table settings that we just don't even think of anymore. So here, when the finger bowl is brought in on the dessert plate, it is equally correct to use or omit a doily. It just seems odd to us, probably because doilies wouldn't have ever entered my mind as something to even put out on a dinner table. But I don't know. I mean, you can see here it does, you know, look kind of cool, all fancy with the candles and flowers. Maybe we should start adopting that a little bit more often. And as promised, I have here one of the little pieces of paper that I found tucked in the pages here, where one of the owners of this cookbook wrote out an entire menu. Now, I don't know if this was for a party or maybe it was just something that she was going to have for dinner one day, but you see she's got her meatloaf with tomato sauce. She got baked stuffed potatoes, carrot casserole. That sounds kind of interesting. Green beans, celery, pickles, etc. Rolls, spoon bread, lemon pie, which that sounds really good, and coffee. And I love how she's got, and most of her little menus had this, the little celery, pickles, nuts, mints, that kind of thing. My grandmother actually had so many dishes that had the little dividers, and you would put them on your coffee table or dining room table, and you would put your olives and your pickles and nuts and mints and that kind of thing, and so your guests would have something to snack on. And I've got quite a few of her dishes that are like that. And again, maybe that's something we need to bring back. It's kind of fun. And now we have something that I think is one of the oddest things that I've ever seen in a newspaper. Now this is the Knoxville News Sentinel, and this one didn't actually have a date on it, but just from the pictures, I'm guessing, again, it was late 40s, early 50s. Now this is obviously a southern newspaper, and when I was growing up around the Detroit downriver area, we got the Detroit Free Press, and I don't remember them doing this. So if anyone out there knows, when you would submit a recipe to the newspaper, would they put your full name and your address, your full address, in the newspaper along with your picture? It just seems like such a violation of privacy. Now I'm showing you this one because this address doesn't exist anymore. So, you know, there's not actually a house you can look up or go to or anything. And as far as I can tell, like, this Temple Avenue doesn't exist anymore either. I guess it just got taken over by a bigger road. But is it just me, or does that just seem so odd that they would put these women's full names, and a lot of times they would actually put her name, and then in parentheses they would put her husband's name and then the address. I don't know, it just seems like an odd thing to do. Now here's another fun thing that I don't know, I'm sure northern newspapers also did, but this was a big thing, including up until like the 1980s and 90s. I don't know that they're still doing it like in our local newspaper, but if you had a house guest coming in, you could call the paper and write up a little blurb about it and literally talk about what you're going to do with that house guest. So you see here we have a Mrs. Sim Bobo of Alabama coming in, and of course they would put her address and who she's coming in to visit along with their full address, and then who's going to be at this dinner party to entertain her, and who was going to have her at another house to honor the guest also, along with her address. And you can see this got cut off at the bottom here. But apparently she was going to go with a Coca-Cola theme, I'm guessing, for her party. And I don't know, I don't know if it's just a different way of thinking, but this also seems to be kind of an invasion of privacy also, to like just put their addresses and full names and everything. So those are just a few of the little treasures that I wanted to show you in this cookbook. And since we're going to do this cookbook all month long, I will go ahead and pull out some more little interesting things. I do have one thing that's really cool that I want to show you next week. I was really excited about. And I'll go ahead and pull out, like I said, some of the more interesting little pieces for us to look at. And hopefully This will kind of give you an idea for next time you go to your library book sale or a yard sale and you see some old cookbooks and you see some newspaper clippings poking out of it. Go ahead and pick it up because you're probably going to find some cute little gems. First, we're going to go ahead and cut our cheese into cubes. The recipe calls for a mild cheese, so go ahead and just use whatever is your favorite. I just picked up this block of mild cheddar from Aldi, but if you want to go more gourmet, I'm sure that would taste really good. Now that we got our cubes made, I'm going to go ahead and measure 1 cup. As you see, I have some left over, but that's okay because I'll just use it for cheese and crackers later. Now we're going to separate our egg yolks. I'm going to break out my cute little egg separator again. And once separated, we'll set that aside and use the egg whites for another recipe. And now we're ready to start our white sauce. In a saucepan, go ahead and get your butter melted. Once done, you're going to add your flour and stir to make a thick roux. You'll need to stir constantly so you don't accidentally burn it. Now go ahead and add your milk. I usually do this a little at a time just so I can fully incorporate it before adding more. Now once you've got a nice thick sauce, we're going to go ahead and add our egg yolk. Plop those right in, break them up, and go ahead and whisk that in. Here's where you'll go ahead and add in your Parmesan cheese. Get that nice and fully melted. And then we're going to go ahead and add our cheese cubes. You'll keep stirring until those cheese cubes are melted. Now this took a little bit, but just keep stirring, it will get there. Once melted, you're going to go ahead and add in your paprika and salt. Give that a really good stir again. Spray a small, shallow pan, and then pour your cheese in the pan, and you're going to allow that to sit and cool down. Now you see I had some liquid, but as it cooled, I just went ahead and poured that off as I needed to. And now onto the peas and carrots. And you can buy frozen peas and carrots, so it kind of saves you this step, but I just plain forgot, so I just went ahead and pulled some carrots out of the fridge and did it the hard way. At first I chopped them my favorite way, just into little discs and then triangles, but then I decided to do it in this way, which is more of a julienne style, and it turned out to be easier, so I just kept up with this technique. You're going to add them to a pan, add your water, bring that to a boil, and allow those to get tender. And now we're going to take a trip outside to get a special ingredient. You can see it turned absolutely gorgeous after the rainfall. So with the sun shining and in between storms, I had just enough time to come out here and pick me some mint. All this rain has been perfect for this mint, and I found the perfect specimen to add to our pot. Back inside, our cheese still needed a little bit more time to cool off, so I went ahead and decided to get our salad ready. I just had some romaine in the fridge, decided to use that. I gave it a rough chop, added it to a bowl, and then decided to use some of my vegetables that I've gotten from my garden. So I chopped up some cucumber, added that to my bowl, and then sprinkled some beautiful little ruby colored cherry tomatoes. And now that our carrots are done, let's go ahead and add our peas to the pot, and we'll put in our mint. So our special ingredient is going to stew right along with these peas and carrots until the peas are heated through. And now it's back to our cheese. Go ahead and put it on your cutting board. Now the cookbook says you can cut them into any shape that you want, little rounds or little heart shape, but I figured a good old-fashioned cheese stick shape was the best way to get a lot of breading on there and be the easiest to eat. And now you see I've got my little assembly line all ready. So you'll put it in your crumbs, then your egg mixture, then your breadcrumbs again, and you are done. So put that on a plate, set it aside, and we'll get ready to fry them. But I went ahead and got all the cheese sticks ready at the same time just to make it that much easier. But first, we've got one more thing we need to do to these peas and carrots. So I fished out the done mint. And after you drain them, go ahead and add some butter. Then you'll add salt and pepper. Then sprinkle with sugar. And you'll be ready to put that into a 350-degree oven just to keep them warm and also to allow the sugar to fully melt. And now we're ready to do our deep frying. So in a pot with some oil, go ahead and bring that to heat. I tested it with putting a few little crumbs in there first to see if any bubbles formed around it. And once it did, I went ahead and put in the actual cheese sticks. And now we're ready to serve our little 1920s meal. And it was easy to imagine that the people who dished this up in 1929 would have no idea that in just a scant few months, they would be thrown into such cataclysmic events that would change the entire course of world history. All right.
Smells good.
Got it done. Let's just dig in.
Okay.
It's fried and hot.
I'm just gonna pick it up.
Okay, that's not what I expected this to taste like.
It's actually better than I expected, honestly.
That's what I'm thinking too. Like, it's akin to a mozzarella stick.
Yeah, it's very similar.
But like there's something else to it, and I can't quite place.
I mean, it's probably because it's cheddar.
Right.
But it does have like a little bit more flavor than like most just like
yeah,
cheese
it
sticks,
really
you know what I
does.
mean? Like it actually is pretty
You kind
good.
of don't miss the marinara sauce. You know what I mean?
Right. It's
You're
almost like the extra cheddar just takes care of that.
You ready to try the peas and carrots? Okay. Now, personally, I think it needs a little more salt.
Yeah, I can see that.
You think so too?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and sprinkle it because I usually tend when I put like salted butter and stuff in the vegetables, I kind of skimp a little bit on the salt just because I'm always afraid that we're gonna blast it with so much sodium it's gonna taste bad.
Yeah, you don't want to oversalt it, that's for sure.
Right. Okay, that's better. So you can definitely get a little hint of mint.
Yeah, but it's subtle and it's not like the first thing you taste.
No, it's
like
very subtle.
Like it's almost like you're tasting it and you're like, oh, it's okay, and then all of a sudden you get that little hint of mint in there, like halfway through chewing on it.
Yeah, and then and then it bursts into your mouth a little bit.
But it leaves your mouth with that minty thing. So like,
I think
does. It stayed. Now that I've set it down and not ate another bite, like the mint is the only part of that I really like.
Yeah,
remember.
it's kind of refreshing though. It's like a good, so paired with the cheese, because cheese tends to be like, especially breaded fried cheese, tends to be really heavy.
Yeah.
And really kind of puts a lot of fat in your mouth.
Yeah.
This is the perfect pairing because then you have kind of your mint refresher in between bites, and you can kind of keep eating it. So, and then of course with the salad, that way you're not pairing so many heavy things on one dish.
Right.
You really just have the one kind of, I guess, gut bomber that we used to call it.
We'll find out. No.
Yeah. So we'll see. But I'm surprised at this. Number one, I'm surprised it just didn't completely melt and fall apart in the hot fat.
Yeah.
That I was frying it in. It actually kept its shape. So I'm kind of surprised at that.
Yeah.
The other thing I would caveat with is you saw me struggle a little bit with the kind of cheese. It kind of separated a little bit in the pot. and then when I was letting it cool, I had to drain it.
The process you went through to melt the cheese and everything separated out the oil, whereas if you just taken like the block cheese and cut it and then breaded it and then put it in there, that same oil would have caused it to just fall apart, I think.
Oh, that's a good point.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
so maybe maybe that's what they were going for.
I don't think that like you could recreate it in such a way, like without going through the process and separating it out, that would have created a solid like cheese stick.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
So we tried 2 recipes out of it. Both of them were really good. I would do this again with peas and carrots. I really enjoy it.
I'd actually play with this a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. Would I make it exactly like it said in the book? Probably not.
Right.
Because I wouldn't serve it as an entree. I think I would do it more as an appetizer. Maybe with some sauce, dipping sauces and different things like that, or on the salad. I think that'd be really good.
Yeah.
And so this has some versatility to it, which you can play around with it and it would still be really good. Or if you just want a really cheap dinner and you want to chow down on some cheese sticks, go for it.
For homemade cheese stick, it's definitely better than anything you're going to get frozen.
Oh my gosh,
you know what I mean? Like out of the box.
Yeah, these are so much better than the little mozzarella sticks that with that little tiny packet of marinara that they throw in there. Yeah. But as for this cookbook, this, like I said, is the 1929 edition. There was several. If you can pick this up, I'm not kidding. I think this might be my new favorite cookbook.
Oh, wow.
That I will be pulling more recipes out of just for our regular dinners that we're not going to film because that's how much I really like this cookbook. It's just, there's something about the way it's organized. There's something about the way it has so many different little unexpected categories that you wouldn't, think about ordinarily. If you can pick this up, now I only paid like $2 for it at the library book sale. I don't know that you would be able to get that on eBay for $2 or whatever, but I would say...
What if they have new editions or something?
They might have new editions. We need to look that, because I know it went several decades, so we can see how many decades it went. But I would say if you find this on eBay for like even $10...
Definitely worth it.
I would get it. It, especially if you're into historical cookbooks and you like historical cooking, that is simple enough and tasty enough to where you'll actually use it for everyday cooking.
Right.
Instead of just like, wow, I would never eat this and I regret this purchase.
Yeah.
So,
which we've had some.
Yeah. We've seen some of those in the 3 years we've been on YouTube. But... So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give this a pickup.
Yeah.
Like definitely get it if you can find it for around $10, maybe $15. That might be, but definitely try these, I think, and especially if you come up with some new ways to use them.
Yeah.
Put it in the comments below. And as I've showed you before we started cooking, it's jam-packed full of recipes from the newspaper, the Knox News Sentinel, from the 40s and 50s. So we're going to pick one of them and see if they're any good. And one of them is from a local lady who has actually passed away, but we found her through this newspaper clipping. Yeah, it's really cool. So we'll kind of talk about her. And we'll do her cookies and we'll see how they taste, because she said that they're quality and quantity. So 2 things you really want in a cookie. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching this one. Bye. And if you like historical cooking and unusual cookbooks, here's 2 more videos you might enjoy. And make sure to like and subscribe for more foodie adventures.